Is there anything else you guys need before we start? So to make sure everything's
Need
good.
some refreshments.
Refreshments, yeah. Can I get you?
Are you offering or like?
A chainsaw finds some meat. It's Flashback 64.
All right, your check is in the mail. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I'm Gooey, joined by my co-host McKenna.
Hello.
And we don't have two Johns, but we have two Andrews. We are joined today, returning guest, my good pal, my podcasting brother. We got Andy Spiteri.
Hey, what's up?
And we are joined, we have a brand new guest coming on. We're happy to have him. Graphic designer, video essayist, musician. We've got Andrew Elmore.
Hello.
How's it going, pal?
Been better, been worse. Hanging in there. They ain't found a way to kill me yet.
Right on, yeah. Have plenty of time for Doom 64, I take it.
Yeah, there's always time for Doom 64.
Of course. Yeah, we're glad to have you here. As always,
I'm honored to be here.
When we have a brand new guest, we like to ask them about their connection to the namesake of our show, the Nintendo 64. Just, as a little icebreaker. So, Andrew, what's your background? How you first encounter the Nintendo 64?
Well, I was born in the year of our Lord 1993. There was a Genesis and a DOS machine in the house. At some point, the Genesis was sold for an N64 by my dad, who wanted the next cool thing. So okay. I was, I guess, 3.5 or something like that when I presumably tore it open Christmas morning. Don't really remember that.
Right, okay.
I did play a lot of Doom on our Packard Bell, whatever that machine was. Might have been a 486. No, it was Windows 95. Anyway, whatever. I played a lot of Doom on a computer as a very small child, and turned out just fine, definitely. Don't worry about that. But I did not actually encounter Doom 64 until some years later. But the N64 was my primary home console throughout its era, I guess. And I feel like I lived in a weird bubble out here in the Puget Sound area around Seattle, where all of my friends also had N64s. And there was like the one weird kid with a PlayStation. And then I grew up, and that is the opposite of the case everywhere else, apparently. But
yeah, I feel...
Yeah.
I know that feeling of like even on this show, like when we are looking back or talking to people who experience a certain game at a certain time, it's fun to be like, oh, okay, this game was a bigger deal than I thought of, or this console or whatever was a bigger deal than like what my 8-year-old brain thought of it as how it was formed at the time.
Yeah, it was definitely weird out here with Nintendo's headquarters for the United States up in Redmond, because the whole like my uncle works at Nintendo playground joke was true just often enough out here that it became a problem. So like my best friend in 3rd grade, his mom did work at Nintendo for a long time, and she could like sit down and like speedrun is not the right word, but that's what it felt like watching her just like power through Contra 3. It was like, this was the most impressive thing that my child mind has ever seen. But yeah, this was a very like I guess Nintendo and later Xbox E-focused area. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I feel like as things globalized later on, that was no longer the case. But anyway, late 90s around Seattle, a lot of N64s going around in a lot of kids' houses. I'll put it that way.
For sure, yeah. Nintendo, they own the baseball team? Is that right? Nintendo? They did. Okay.
They recently sold their stake in the Mariners, but yeah.
Okay, fantastic. But yeah, Mike, I know Microsoft around there too. I actually had a friend who had an uncle who lived out there that worked at Microsoft. Yep. I like that. You're closer to like ground zero of those types of rumors.
Yeah.
You get in just close enough to start those rumors. There you go. I agree, actually. I don't know now that you said it, like all my friends had N64s. I feel like almost nobody that I knew had a PlayStation, which like when you look at the sales, it's like you would think that it would be the opposite, but yeah, I'm with you there, man.
Yeah, I have no idea how that worked out, but
I grew up in like a pretty small town, so it was like there was probably like, of like the groups of kids I hung out with, it was probably like half and half, and then there were some who, you know, if they're the rich kids, they had both, obviously, or they'd have something like a freaking Game Gear or something, and you're like, what the hell is that thing?
One of those Sega things. Ugh.
I almost put on my old Sega Sports hat as a joke before turning the camera on.
Wow, don't betray us like that. What was
I grew up into a Sega kid. I didn't start.
I'm not gonna have. I don't know.
What was the split? Oh no.
I don't know about that era.
Okay.
I don't remember when I was
Fair
enough.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You had a friend.
I feel like I wasn't like super conscious of what consoles other people had until like the Wii came out, and everyone had a Wii.
That's a whole different. That's a different reality entirely.
I feel like as a kid, it was like everyone had a Game Boy, Game Boy Advance. Yeah. That's what I remember.
Everyone in my school had a Game Boy for sure. Like to the point where they were having to like crack down on it.
Oh yeah, and when Pokemon was at its highest, you can bring your Game Boy, you can trade cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it wasn't until the PS2 came out that I really noticed like lots of people moved away from Nintendo and like lots of people now had PlayStation. I'm sure like a lot of people had the PSX, but like especially because the PS2 had like the DVD player in it, which was like so like revolutionary at the time. That's when I was just like, okay, now everybody like now I'm like one of the only Nintendo people left. What's going on here?
Yeah, I remember actually going on like a field trip where we stayed over at some place and then went to like museums. This was like right around the time the PS2 came out, and the GameCube was out like early on in that. And I remember like one kid at like the room he was staying at, he brought his PS2, and it was like, oh yeah, like he can listen to music and like watch movies and stuff, and that was like the cool place to hang. And I brought my GameCube with the Zelda Collector's Edition, and I was like, wait, I'm gonna beat Majora's Mask, guys.
That's a tough look too, because the PS2 is so like sleek and cool looking. Like the GameCube had its little handle with its
Guys, I brought my lunchbox.
All right, well, this is not a GameCube podcast, so we gotta hold off on that for a while. Before we get into the game proper, let's go ahead and do our patented flashback segment. See what was going on at the time. We're moving forward from March 25th. Doom 64 came out April 4th, 1997. And I've just got information here from all of April. So we're going to get in the mind space of April 1997. Number one song, 6 weeks as the number one song in America, is Can't Nobody Hold Me Down by Puff Daddy featuring Mace. Other songs that are newcomers on the top 5 include All By Myself by Celine Dion, For You I Will by Monica from the Space Jam soundtrack. The Space Jam will still not let go of America. It's still got it in its grips. And Hypnotize by Notorious B.I.G. This leads into our number one albums. For 1 week, we had 9 Lives by Aerosmith.
Trying to figure out, I was like, does that line up with Armageddon? No, not quite.
Not yet. Not yet.
Oh, I thought that was 96. That was a tough
Do we or do we not want to miss a thing? I'm confused.
98?
I think it's 98.
With Deep Impact.
Is that okay?
Yeah, 'cause I think The Rock was 96. If we're going by the Bay timeline, as opposed to the Gregorian calendar.
The other number one album for the rest of the month of May was Life After Death by Notorious B.I.G.
There we go.
Which had, of course, Hypnotize, Mo Money, Mo Problems. Yeah, it's a great.
It has an awesome song on it that is, I'm not gonna say the title here. It's very graphic, but it has R. Kelly. It has R. Kelly in it, so it's like very weird to listen to now. But it's still like such a cool song, you know.
That's a lot of 90s stuff where you're like, oh, this has R. Kelly in it. It's kind of weird now. So last episode we talked about how Liar Liar starring Jim Carrey was #1 movie. It ends its 3-week streak at #1, giving way to Anaconda, which reigns for 2 weekends, and then followed by Volcano. So this was a prime time for, I guess, some like schlock, some cool schlocky movies. Both Anaconda and Volcano are ridiculous, but awesome movies. Andrew, you were singing the praises of it, weren't you? Or no, you said you had the Dante's Peak Laserdisc, did you not?
Oh yeah, that was a case where my wife made a list of movies that she saw on TV a lot growing up and wanted me to keep an eye out for, and I was at Scarecrow Video and they had Dante's Peak on a dang Laserdisc, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take that home for $1. I'll buy that for $1, as they say. That movie's all right.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's fine.
We watched that recently as well too, and quite enjoyed it. I just wanted to get in. I wanted to mention and shout out the Laserdisc format, which is, I think, one of the best ways to watch a movie, where you have to get up and change it halfway through the movie.
Oh, not mine, baby.
No. Oh, you got the automatic. Wow, that's fancy.
TriStar Pictures invites you on a journey into the grip of fear. Anaconda.
Other notable games from the time, we had Vandal Hearts, Need for Speed 2, and Redneck Rampage.
Wow. I want to play that game.
No, you do not. No, you do not. Take it from me, buddy. No, you do not.
Did that not have an N64 release?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
I think that was
thought I saw it
sold
on the list.
exclusively on a big box at Walmart.
A big box at Walmart. It's one of those games. This was the time when Sony released the dual analog controller for the PS1. So, people who are sitting here playing their Doom with just the C buttons on the N64, probably starting to get jealous of that dual stick.
Yeah.
Also, people that are playing Doom on PS1 from 2 years prior are sitting there looking at that dual stick being like, man,
I wish I had this. Other little things that happened in April. April 5th, The Crocodile Hunter debuted.
Wow.
So that came into our lives. And April 30th, Ellen DeGeneres came out in public.
I'm so afraid to tell people. I mean, Susan, I'm gay.
Oh, Andy, I wanted to give you an update, a wrestling update, because it's your boy.
Oh,
but we mentioned in the last episode, you had the famous Bret Hart Stone Cold Steve Austin match at WrestleMania. So their feud has continued into April. I was watching, and this is prime Bret Hart smack talking America, and talking about just completely trashing America. It's like it's amazing.
What month did he have his legendary Pittsburgh line?
Last week, I said the United States of America was one big giant toilet bowl. If you were gonna give the United States of America an enema, you'd stick the hose right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
that's not bad.
I've never been to Pittsburgh. I'm sure it's a lovely city.
I like Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh a lot, actually.
What a good line.
One weird thing that I don't remember hearing about is Vader, the wrestler Vader, was detained in Kuwait.
Yep. I remember that. He beat the shit out of some talk show host.
He didn't attack the guy. He grabbed him by his collar. He didn't like assault him.
Isn't that his job?
Yes. So he was being interviewed on Good Morning Kuwait, and the interviewer asked him if wrestling was fake, and he grabbed him by the collar and he's like, "Does this feel fake?" or whatever, and he got in big trouble. Well, it said that he stayed in a luxury hotel for 2 weeks, which made me start to question
Against his will.
Yeah, right. It said he was detained, and they started promoting it on TV. They had a picture of him with like bars. But I was looking it up, and it everywhere says it's real, but you never know with wrestling, you know.
It's totally real. I remember listening to like some podcasts, like the
me,
Undertaker was right beside him or whatever while this was happening.
That was the funniest part, was he's yelling at this guy, and the fucking Undertaker is just sitting there, just like watching, like, all right.
Blazed out of his gourd, just chilling. I've never watched Mia wrestling, but I feel like if you invite some wrestlers onto a talk show and ask if it's fake and it's the late 90s, the proper response is for him to grab you by the collar and yell, "It does this feel fit?" Like that should be like you're playing into that, right? Like that's the improv bit. Is that no? Anyway.
Does that fucking feel fake, huh? Does that feel fake?
Oh, no, just...
Why don't you come down tonight, and before I kick his ass, I'll kick your ass.
Let's get into our game that we got. McKenna, set us up. Let's get into Doom 64.
Doom 64 is a first-person shooter developed by Midway Studios under the supervision of id Software. A sequel to Doom 2, you play as a space marine returning to a Mars moon base you once saved from demons. But the demons are back, and you're the only one equipped to deal with them. You'll explore levels, collecting keys, uncovering secrets, and killing these horrifying demons with a variety of weapons, such as the Super Shotgun, the Unmaker, and the BFG. You'll also have to be careful of radioactive waste and moving ceilings that will crush you if you don't move quickly. Find each level exit to progress through the moon base, and eventually the depths of hell, where you will meet your doom.
So, Andrew, you already mentioned a little bit some of your background. It sounds like you're a big fan of this game, but just Doom in general. You said you started off on the PC.
Yeah, that was one of my first experiences with a video game, was being a toddler and sitting on my... Declare, I'm 30 years old. I have 2 kids. Like, I feel like a fetus talking about this, but no, just being a 3-year-old or whatever and sitting on my dad's lap and playing Doom with a keyboard. Was that, and eventually Quake later as well. I don't know. I think that was just my dad was really into games up through 2010-ish or so. We kind of fell off. But
it happens to us all. Not
for sure.
but where you're like, I don't follow this as closely.
Yeah, there are some life paths, I guess, where just kind of doesn't work out anymore. I don't know, man. It's not important. The important thing is I played a lot of Doom as a kid because it was just around. I don't know when I even became aware of Doom 64. It would none of my friends had it or anything. It was just a thing that I bought years later. I mean, you can see the ratty old stickers that I peeled off of this copy whenever I bought it.
Yeah, but that
however
picture,
long ago.
That picture you sent me made it look gorgeous. I was
ooh. They're trying to lean into the aesthetic of torn off old rental store stickers or whatever that was on that cartridge. Anyway, I don't know. I picked this copy up some years ago, and I remember thinking it was extremely cool and doing a lot of the things that I loved so much about the PS1 version of Doom, which is kind of my go-to favorite Doom experience.
For sure, yeah.
But it was, doing so with a lot of other really impressive technical things that I didn't understand much better until later on when I, began my career in game development and started to learn how some of this stuff works. And I really, really enjoyed it, except for the reliance on the password system, which was just a bit, I don't know, that was a step too far for me, I guess, in terms of being able to really sit down and commit to getting deep into the game, I guess. I never bothered to write it down after finishing a session or whatever. I was just I will just sit down and see how far I get, and that's how I play Doom 64. Up until the Night Dive re-release a couple years ago on the Kex engine across all modern platforms. I'm not here to read marketing copy for them. I just really appreciate them very dearly, and everyone there that worked on this thing.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
Sure I'm sure you guys watched it, but John Lindemann from Digital Foundry did a really good kind of like interview video with a couple of the people on that team specifically. I'll drop it in the chat while we're talking.
Please, because I watched their video for Turok, and I had a similar appreciation. Like, I read a little bit about the Switch, or like the remake that I was playing on Switch, and I was developing just an even greater fondness for like the people who are like showing these games love, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's been a really, really excellent way to, I think, bring this game to more people, not just because it's now more accessible and on things that people still have and are not a giant pain to hook up to a modern television without it being disastrous, but it's also just got some really, really impactful changes and quality of life things to the game itself in terms of the way that it renders things, and also just like having normal save and load functions as you would expect and all that. And I just am very, very grateful for that edition, which I've now played through on 3 different platforms, I think, since it's come out. I just fired it up on Steam like 10 minutes before we were recording for the first time, but I played through it on PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, I guess, over the past couple of years.
Right on. Yeah.
Play that one.
I did
at this point. I don't. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we were playing the original, and we did have like there is like a save system in there. It's just like,
did I completely just misunderstand how that game works all these years? Because that's a distinct possibility.
I think so, but I think
oh, cool.
To your credit, we were having this actually with our last game in FIFA Soccer, where I could not change the second team, and then it was our buddy Ryan from Standard Definition Gaming who was like, oh, you just have to hit the B button, but like it's just not intuitive at all. And that's how the saving in Doom 64 is too. You have to go into the password menu to access the saving, right? Yeah, you can go into the password menu, and then you can go, they do have like files that you can save onto, and you have to hit,
never saw that before.
You have to hit C left and C right at the same time.
What?
To save. It's like
okay, I feel a little less bad now.
It reminded me of a lot of A Link's Awakening, where you have to press all the buttons to save. It's like, that's it.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it is in there.
I thought the saves were like awesome. I mean, granted, like I played the remaster, but I frequently, if like my health was low and I had like all my cool weapons and I didn't want to lose, I'd like, okay, save, and if I died, I would like immediately just load up my last save, like immediately.
I also noticed too, I had a time where I forgot to save, and then I died, and I was like, oh. But then I was like, I went into password, and it had a password automatically typed in, and I hit it, and it like loaded up, and I had my stuff still. So I don't know if there's some weird thing they did, or maybe I just got lucky or something, but I like basically had my password in there for me somehow. I don't know what type of magic occurred to make
my
that
father
happen.
told me, you gotta be good to be lucky, Goo.
Well, you hadn't turned it off, right? It might have still been in memory or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hadn't turned it off. I had just died, and I was like, oh crap, I didn't save. And I was like, I gotta do something. And I went in there, and it was just, I don't know. I'm good. I'm lucky.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I misunderstood. I don't know. Like even in this new one, the password system is confusing, but it's a force for good in the remake, apparently, you know.
I didn't know what it was for, because I was like, well, I can easily save and load. Like, what the hell do I need passwords for? Like, so I didn't even use them at all. But that, now that you say that makes much more sense. If you have like a specific like load that you want to reload if you die in a level, that's probably exactly what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking?
Well, Andy, how about you? All right, I don't even know. Doom. Have you encountered this much in your life? Is this a series you're pretty familiar with?
No, honestly, I have like 2 connections to the Doom series, and both of them were made later in my life. And one is you, Gooey fame, and through Virtual Theater, which is our podcast about video game movies and the stories that shape them. That was like the first, like, I think, Doom that I watched.
What an entry into the series.
And I was like, this is wicked. It has, we got The Rock, we got Carl Urban, we got this monkey. Like, this is sweet. And then
Doom
um,
Monkey.
over on my other podcast, which is about Metroid, it's called the Omega Metroid Podcast. One of so it started off as a fan of the show, and eventually he's now like a very good friend of mine and a co-host of the podcast. But this guy's name, his real name is Reese, but his screen name was Doominal Crossing, because you might remember that like Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing came out in this. It was like the Barbenheimer before Barbenheimer.
Sure. Yeah.
So like it's like he was always just like, dude, you got to play Doom. It's so good. Play the Bethesda ones. Play the Doom Eternal's my favorite game. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Okay. So I went and bought both Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. And I haven't quite gotten around to play Doom Eternal yet, but I played the entirety of Doom 2016, and I was really impressed. I don't know like what I was expecting, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting when I finished it. And I would say the same thing about Doom 64 actually. So like it wasn't Metroid Prime by any means, but it wasn't like it didn't feel to me like a standard first person shooter, just like go in waves of enemies, like, even though that's kind of what it is to an extent. So yeah, I don't have like a ton of history with Doom, but everything I've played has been like pleasantly surpassing my expectations.
That's awesome.
So yeah
That's interesting, because I think Doom 2016 focuses really heavily on one of the aspects that I think construct the sort of identity of Doom, which is arena combat. And that is, I think, primarily that game's focus, is just putting you in cool rooms that are fun to jump around in and blast stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it largely fails for me as a Doom game. Because there's just so much more. Like, to me, Doom is a dungeon crawler, first and foremost.
I can see that, yeah.
Like, the things that I love most about Doom are the feelings after you feel pretty confident that you've already cleared a map out and you're now running around hunting for like keys or secrets or whatever, and just like it ends up contributing to your own kind of internalization of this space that you're in, and the kind of like map that exists in your head, and the navigating of that space kind of becomes the game for me. And occasionally you'll turn a corner and Hell Knight or something will pop out of a wall that you didn't know was a secret door while you're just button mashing.
I killed you.
Like,
yeah,
and it's just, God, there's still stuff in here. Okay, like that's really fun for me. I like that part a lot. Yeah, I think that's why I'm really drawn to the PS1 port of Doom, which has all of the colored sector lighting and
very pretty lighting.
I'm sure we'll get into the Aubrey Hodges soundtrack stuff for this later, but yeah, and that and also a lot of the things that Doom 64 focuses on are things that tend to be what make Doom so important
Special
and successful to me, at least. And 2016 is a very fun video game, but I think it is a much bigger and more like fleshed out and expanded version of one of the, like, I guess, pillars, if we want to use marketing speak again, of what Doom is in my head, I guess. And then Eternal just like runs so hard in one very specific direction that I just don't want anything to do with in terms of my personal taste or whatever. I do have a soft spot for that movie, though. That's one of the last times we got actual good practical effects and like, big budget horror. And that movie's dumb as hell. I love it. It's great.
Oh, it's so good.
You got Doug Jones.
I can agree with what you're saying.
It's great. I mean, it's very bad, but I enjoy it immensely.
I feel like my expectation for Doom, and I'm talking just in general, like Doom 64 and Doom 2016, it was just like a big dumb shooter where you just like shot aliens or people from hell, like Martians or whatever it is, and like it kind of is that, but like I was impressed with like the exploration and the platforming and the, I guess, like amount of secrets and stuff. Like I guess I wasn't really expecting that from Doom. Like I was kind of picturing it like every other first person shooter where like you have like 3 objectives that you need to go do. You can just quickly fire them off. You can you could defeat the enemies if you want. Maybe you don't have to. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's just that I went in with like lower expectations, but like everything I've played from Doom has like far surpassed them for me so far.
Yeah, I think if you don't have any experience with original, like, old 2D ass Doom these days, it's like, I think original Resident Evil with the volume turned up. It's much more
Sure,
in
yeah.
the Metroid-y territory, except you can run at 55 miles an hour and you have a bazillion shotguns.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was just like, this is sweet, because like I'm a Metroid guy, and I was like, dang,
Yes.
this is cool. Like you're going back and forth. Like there's some
Backtracking.
Metroidvania ingredients in that stew.
Yeah, absolutely. I might also recommend, speaking of Night Dive, their recent release of Power Slave Exhumed is also very much in that
Okay.
vein. That was another shooter from around this era that had Saturn, PS1, and PC ports. Each one was a completely different game. I believe the PC was a build engine game or something. It was much more like Duke Nukem 3D, like 90s ass
Oh, hell
shooter.
yeah.
But the Saturn game was Metroid
Yeah.
Prime, effectively. Like it is
Ooh.
Metroid Prime with a level select screen, like on a map. No, that's actually not. You exit an area and that takes you to a level select screen, so you can like kind of teleport to other areas and stuff. But they are still all interconnected, and it's very much like you go finish one level and you get these cool sandals because everything is like Egyptian themed, because they used. I don't know if they named it after the Iron Maiden album with all the weird like cartoon Egypt stuff on the cover or what. For Power
didn't
Slave,
picture
it's
the
not
cover.
important. It was by Lobotomy Software, who did like the Saturn port of Quake, which is amazing, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I don't remember how we got here. If you want, a first-person shooter that feels like a blueprint for Metroid Prime, go play Night Dive's re-release of Power Slave.
Yeah,
Again, I'm not.
You're shilling.
here.
We're
I just
shilling.
like
We
them.
get it. We get it. You're shilling. No.
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever heard of Lobotomy Software, but that's like by far the best name for a video game company I've ever heard.
Oh, dude, they rule.
So good.
Yeah, as I'm playing it, I was having a similar feeling where I was like, some of these levels, I'm like, these are like Zelda dungeons almost. And this is
Totally.
These are the first 3D Zelda dungeons, I think, ever in existence.
Yeah, you could put it that way. I mean, someone did rebuild all of the original Zelda in Doom not too long ago.
I believe that. That is awesome.
And it's remarkably one
We
for
gotta-
one.
We gotta
It's
check that out.
We definitely gotta look
it's
that up.
pretty all right. It's just NES Zelda in first person, and you have a shotgun. But it's
Well,
pretty.
McKenna,
Hell yeah.
Do you have any background with the Doom series at all? I don't think so.
No.
Right? Okay.
I've always tended to avoid first-person games. It's just, I don't know. Most of the ones I've tried, I've just felt like uncomfortable playing. Like you can't get used to the controls and the
It's never clicked with
style. Yeah, but I don't know. This felt a little different than most of the first-person games I played. Maybe because I don't know if it's because it's just like the style. It's older. It's got kind of different feel to it.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's like the DNA of like a lot of later games is in there, but
I guess you also have like one less plane to worry about. I only have to,
Yeah.
I don't have to aim up or down.
yeah,
It's a little simpler.
it contributes to.
That was weird too for me to get used to.
Yeah,
it's a
I remember-
2D game.
I think I started. I was like, how do I get the guy up there?
It just it'll
Oh,
do
no,
it for
okay,
you.
Okay.
It
I
does.
feel like that stuff.
Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say. I feel like that stuff clicks into place mentally when you learn that all of the walls and like elevated floors and stuff in that game are all fake.
Yeah,
It's all fake.
Mhm.
It's all.
It is a
an
2D
illusion.
engine that is just
That's so cool to me. Like that's so impressive that they
Yeah.
that they do that. But I actually like that element of the gameplay because it does it like there are the parts of the game where you're running around and looking for stuff, but then when you are in those moments of just like shooting and stuff, like it's still like very fast paced, very like strategic, like you're dodging and stuff, but just taking away the like up and down, it just makes it so much more like, all right, here we go. Like nothing. It's time to shoot.
Yeah.
It's time to shoot.
And I kind of like too, like even if you had an enemy that was like, it looked like they were on like a higher elevation than you could still shoot it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and it went right up to their nose. And I was like, sweet, this is awesome. Which also, speaking of Zelda, took me a minute to like wrap my head around too is that you can in fact jump in this game, but it's like in Ocarina of Time when you just go and you jump automatically. Once I figured that out, I felt like my movement was like really rocking and rolling. So yeah, but I love just like, you have the enemy, you can move so fast. Like combat was like it was so slick in this game, so slick.
Yeah, especially in that remake where you can just have run always on. You're like, yep,
yeah,
I'm just running. There's a couple times I ran right off the edge of stuff, but
I know I had to take one off because I was going too fast and I was like running way past everyone I needed to shoot.
It's freeway speeds, man.
My background, I have some background with the series. Actually, even before this, I have a similar backstory as you, Andrew, where when I was really young, we got a computer. It was actually probably well after Doom even came out. But I was actually maybe not, but I was pretty young. And we had a computer and it was like DOS where you had to like type in. We only had that for a few years, then we got like, you had whatever Windows or something. But I had DOS for a little bit. So a very brief period where I was like 4 or 5 years old. I was like typing in commands to bring the game up, which felt magical to like, you'd be like, I type in a little command and for some reason a video game appears. It's way different than plugging in my NES and turning it on, but okay. But we had on our first computer, we actually had Wolfenstein 3D. And that is actually more so for me, like the one just because of nostalgia, that it's like we sat down and played that one a little bit too. What did you think about that, McKenna? I mean, I guess it's similar in a lot of ways.
Control's pretty similar. Yeah, it was fun. I had fun playing it.
But it's still playing it, like just the vibe, and even though there's some things, especially now learning about making it, where you can see like the limitations they had and everything. There's just something about being in that game that it still blows me away. So that was like kind of actually what I knew for a while, and then Doom was just so big that it was everywhere, and the original game, had sort of the that shareware release where like people just got the first part of it for free, and I think it was even before the meme of like Doom runs on anything, where like I would just go places and they had Doom, and I don't know if they even knew they had Doom. For example, at my local library, which is just one room in the small town I grew up in, the town of 500 people, one room library, they had 2 computers that had, Oregon Trail, Sim Ant, and then Doom was on there, and I don't think they installed that on there. I think someone else got a copy and put it on the library.
Some blessed soul, yeah.
And then I had some friends who had the PlayStation release, so I played a little bit of it. But that was always one of those. I've talked about like a lot of those type of games that I viewed as sort of like, especially that PlayStation version of like, oh, that's like the cool kids game. Like I don't have the PlayStation. I'm because it was like, I think the Nintendo to PlayStation ratio was more like everyone I knew who had a PlayStation also had an N64. If that in my town, so it was like, wow, they're awesome if they have, and it's like violent and all this stuff. So it's just like I could never have this game, Just
and you go home and pop Mario 64 back in, and just all these cartoon cowboy sounds with the music. It's very very different mood.
It's hard to in just this episode where we're not even talking about it's hard not to bring up the original Doom, and it's almost impossible to like sum up its impact on gaming as part of a conversation like of Doom 64, but it's almost like it's hard not to, like the Doom 64 like exists sort of in the shadow of the original Doom, which was revolutionary at the time. But this game itself is a little, I would say, I mean, you're seeing now more attention paid to it now, but it feels like it's almost like a hidden gem or something. Like it doesn't get treated, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think it gets treated like with the same reverence or like, in the same conversation as like Doom, and I think there's a couple reasons, but I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, if I may, like, and you know, this is not accurate to the game's quality, but just like as someone that didn't grow up playing Doom or whatever, I the general perception that I always had of Doom, like the franchise, was that the first one was really good, and then basically every other one wasn't that great until like the 2016 remake. And like, you know, like I said, I've never played any of them, so that, and I'm sure that that's probably not true because I really enjoyed Doom 64. But that was always the perception that I feel like I had, and I think I picked that up from maybe the circle that I was in. Granted, I was in kind of the Nintendo circle, and I don't know that you really associate Doom with Nintendo very much, if at all. But like Doom 64 in particular, I feel like I told you this a couple weeks ago, Goo, when I was playing, and I was like, this is actually pretty sweet. Like I think I'd always just kind of heard or assumed or whatever that it was just kind of like I said, like this schlocky kind of game you could turn your brain off and go shoot some demons or whatever. So like I was again pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it has it. I feel like it did have that perception a little bit, like, but not.
Andrew, I saw you cringing when I was talking about my
yeah.
Oh no,
Doom. I'm sorry.
Like, be like, oh my heart. The Doom 3 liker has logged on.
Well,
but no, I think
that's fair.
There are two very specific phenomena that I think are kind of important to like setting up the context around Doom 64. The first of them being like, this is around the era where Doom started to split into two kind of distinct vibes. There are Doom games that are all metal all the time, rip and tear, a chainsaw, find some meat, etc. And then there are Doom games that are horror games that also try to empower you to fight back against increasingly that's what I'm looking for. Escalating. There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I got there eventually. Increasingly escalating threats, etc. Those games tend to be darker, slower, not particularly lit in terms of the environment.
Right. Well, that even happened with the original game itself in a way, because you had the different, like, it was such a big PC hit, and then they had to port it to everything, and it was particularly that PlayStation port you mentioned that was the one that had the more moody lighting, and then the change of the soundtrack that changed the vibe. So while the game played similarly, you even had within the game itself, like it's a vibe shift, if you will.
Yeah, and that's exactly the other thing that I was going to talk about, is like, because Doom was the biggest thing in the world at the time, famously there were more copies of Doom installed on computers than Microsoft Windows for a while. So it's this gigantic thing. Everyone wants a piece of the money that is coming in. All these different companies are licensing the rights to distribute their own ports to different home console platforms and stuff. And all of them are, each one of those is a different kind of story of how it came to be and why it has the various restrictions that it does. For example, the Jaguar port I think that might have been the first console port. Am I making that up? No,
is that
whatever.
That's anyway, the no music one?
Exactly, because it needs the Jaguar doesn't have any kind of built-in audio hardware, so a lot of games don't have any music because they're using the backup CPU in there. Is it just next 68,000 or something? Anyway, for co-processing, so it can't play music because it needs as much horsepower as it can get to remain sort of playable. And every different port in that era kind of has its own unique mood and rhythm of play, because you see, like, I don't know, I think the thing that's most interesting about the way that Doom kept getting ported throughout the 90s was you see a lot of different studios show their own priorities in terms of what they valued about that game, in terms of like where they had to make cuts and what they wanted to support. So a lot of cases for hardware reasons, that's like cut everything that we can to keep the frame rate into like double digits at least, so that people aren't getting, like horribly car sick trying to play this thing. Or like the Super Nintendo port by Randy Linden uses the Super FX chip and like has to cut the horizontal resolution in half, so everything's super chunky.
I don't think I could play that version. I was looking at footage of it and I was like,
it ain't great,
boy. Why even bother at that point is how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of no reason to now, aside from either nostalgia or just like academic purposes.
Yeah.
But it's an example of like, even the Super Nintendo, people were trying to figure out how to get Doom running on that thing. And I think Randy Linden and his team and the quote unquote reality engine that they built for that thing is at once extremely impressive and also kind of just not.
I gotta give it up to him.
Super valid anymore these days. Oh, totally. The fact that it runs at all is amazing, and the fact that it is a bit more playable than some other versions of the time is incredible. But that all kind of fell off around 95-ish. I feel like once PS1 and Saturn ports were out, it was like it was kind of on the tail end of the bigger initial Doom craze, and like a lot of these home ports are like throwing in a bunch of levels from Doom 2 and expansion packs and stuff just to pad it out and have a big thing on the back of the box. It's like, we've got a bazillion levels. Most of them are all right. And
I think that helps add to the perception of this game, though, because it was ported to everything. And then, like you said,
usually badly,
around 95, like Quake is on the horizon, right? Or it's coming out.
Yeah.
And then
96, I believe, yeah.
And then something we said in our Turok episode, but GoldenEye is right around the corner, so that doesn't help.
Same year.
But then Doom 64, I think there's a couple like perceptions that I got from like reading reviews from the time, but one that I sort of get is like that it, even some of the marketing or like the way it's presented is like, oh, this is a reimagining of the original Doom. But when you play it, like I played both, and I played some of a bunch of different Doom games, but I'm playing this, I'm like, no, this is like a new game. Like this is a sequel.
It is a completely different video game. Yeah.
And McKenna said it in your reading. It's a sequel, and like it reminds me a little bit of like the Wii U almost, where it's like,
yeah,
I think some
like that's what I mean. Like it like to me, like having never played Doom, it just seemed like it's like there was like confusion about all, because there's like 1,000 different ports of Doom, but like all of them were kind of like they seem to be haphazard anyway. I mean, like you were just saying, like some of them, the consoles could barely run them, so it's just like it seemed to me like at the time, to use the more modern analogy, but it was like Assassin's Creed when it was like really bad, putting out like a bunch of games every year, and then they did that like reset where they kind of like took a couple of years off and then put out like one good game and then the other. Like that I feel like Doom lived in that gray murky area to me for like 15 years.
But it was like
maybe more.
They were porting the same game, so it's like even
with different things wrong with it. And then Doom 64 comes out and it just says Doom 64 on it. So if you don't know, you assume it's like, okay, good, they ported Doom again. Great, yes.
Yeah.
Another thing runs Doom. Great. But no, it is a completely different game. It's wild.
I think that perception, another reason why is it's not developed by id Software, who made Doom. So I think maybe there's something.
We're in the process of falling apart at the time.
Yeah. So
we're going through some Fleetwood Mac shit at the
Exactly. So like there's probably a lot of stuff with that, and also I think then. So they're not going to call it like Doom 3, but they probably could have.
Right.
And
they totally
got
could have.
away.
Technologically, it's a huge step up. Like this game is not fake. Those walls and buildings are real. You can have floors on top of floors.
Whoa.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But that also does mean it's got like these, ridiculously complex level designs and stuff in comparison to what could have been done before. And a lot of new art, and they brought in like changed versions of like weapons from Doom 2 and stuff. So like they have all this opportunity to play a lot with both the exploration aspect and the kind of dungeon crawling aspect, and also they can just do a lot more with the combat. So it ends up
big time,
being this weird experiment of like what if Doom, but a few years later in a post-Quake world. I don't know. It's a fascinating thing, I think.
The other thing that I think, it's kind of almost the opposite of the public perception thing I was saying, but I think some reviews I was finding of it were not thinking of it as this is a port or whatever, like this is more of that Doom, but they were like looking at it of like, okay, this was like a sequel to this game, but they, like, a lot of people weren't seeing like what's the difference here, or like what's it really bringing to the table. I think just from like the core gameplay, some reviews I was reading were like, you know, oh, like you can't jump, you can't swim, you know, like they're like, because Doom from Wolfenstein, I think, was like people were seeing like the jump of like, oh, this is how things changed. I think if you're playing this at the time, you might not. It's like it looks better and stuff, and like I think there are, when you break it down, there are these new like Zelda, Metroid type things, like aspects about it even more so. Like I think they do evolve some of the puzzle things from the original Doom and have some unique stuff, but I think just like at the core gameplay, I think some people were viewing it as like, okay, like this isn't like revolutionary like Doom was, you know, so it had to like kind of live in its shadow in that sense too.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it's also just not quite what they were looking for, because Doom, you know, classically speaking, it's got that Bobby Prince soundtrack, which is a bunch of MIDI like ripoffs of like Metallica and Megadeth riffs and stuff, and it's just like all up in your face, and it rules. I say ripoffs with like all of the affection in my heart.
It's so sick.
But yeah, Doom 64 has polygons, it's got colored lighting, it's got, and going back to the Aubrey Hodges soundtrack, that dude was just doing all of these like industrial, experimental, like really dark ambient soundscape type stuff for all of the like home ports of Quake games at the time. And Doom 64 is a spooky video game in ways that Doom kind of rarely dipped its toe into.
Doom has its moments, but it's like, this is like, it's like almost constantly like pretty scary. We were pretty, McKenna actually got, you got pretty spooked, right?
Oh yeah, like they would just put stuff in that sounded like monster sounds or something. I think
in the soundtrack.
Same thing was happening in like Turok, where they'd have like a growl in the soundtrack. So I'd be like, is there something there? Like, what's going on?
There's like babies crying in the soundtrack and stuff.
These rando sounds. I agree, because so obviously, like, again, 2016 was the first Doom I played, and like the soundtrack to me for that game was like a highlight, because it was like,
it was
rip and tear. Let's go.
Yeah.
And yeah, this one I was I don't know, I guess underwhelmed would be an appropriate word, but it was just a different style of music, and I didn't finish the game, so I can't speak with full authority, but like there never was like a big like, okay, let's go. Like maybe like the few of the arenas where like you fight a bunch of enemies and like that's all you do, but like generally speaking in levels, like it was pretty, it was like pretty scary, pretty ambient, pretty like menacing, like what could be around the corner, rather than like, you've got demons right here, right now, let's go.
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit more in the middle, but I think it's funny because it's just like Doom 3 actually is viewed as such an outlier, and it is in a lot of ways, but like this game kind of has some of those elements of like where you like, sometimes you don't, well, when I replayed it, I'm comfortable with the game now, so I'm just like, I'm flying through it or whatever, but when we were playing, like, we were hesitant to walk around. You were yelling, you got jump scared. What jump scared you? I can't remember.
Lots of things, but I think the best jump scare. Well, it wasn't when we were playing Doom 64. It was which one were we were doing the?
We were playing Doom. We were playing Deathmatch on the original Doom.
You jump scared.
Yeah.
I jump scared McKenna. Yeah, and we were doing Deathmatch. We were doing.
She trusted you, man.
We were doing cooperative actually, so it wasn't even better.
I shot you because you jump scared me.
I deserve.
I'm glad you said that. I was about to ask how you could sit beside this guy, but that makes me feel better.
What do you think the soundtrack? Well, you got spooked by the noises, but we were just sitting listening to it, and some of the songs are like, It's like a sick album like that they put out. We were like sitting down listening to them, and maybe want to play the game like because we played it on our little CRT TV with the N64, and then I replayed it just handheld on Switch because it's such a fun game to pick up and play. But it makes me want to play it again, but either with nice speakers turned all the way up or with headphones, you know what I mean, and like really hear those sounds, you know. Maybe
I've been doing that the entire time we've been recording.
Are you winning?
No.
Yeah, did you win? Well, first of all, so McKenna, you're not big with like first person stuff, but now we're in this era. We've played Turok and now we've played Doom 64. Like, what's your of this era of like the early 3D first person shooters? What's your takeaway? I'm not
looking forward to you having to play Forsaken. I'm so sorry.
Forsaken. I don't even know that one.
It's
I remember the really cool box art, seeing it all the time at Blockbuster.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I think it's just going to be a really rough jump into some really weird first person controls.
How did you do with that, or like what was your just in general your perception of this compared to Turok, or like you know?
I think we did some messing around with.
Oh, that was one awesome
mapping.
thing is the button. You can change the button mapping on
I switched it around a few times.
Yes,
but we
got
figured
some
something
good
out
button
that
mapping.
I felt pretty comfortable with.
Yeah.
Whereas Turok, you know, I was playing the like left-handed controls instead of the right.
Not as much freedom. With them.
But I still never quite got, you know, as I felt more confident with the Doom controls. Also, I think when I for first-person stuff, I think I have more interest in more like horror. Well, Turok does have sort of some horror, some spooky elements,
sure.
but
there's fog.
Where like I don't play a lot of first person horror because I'm bad with the controls, but I do like to watch playthroughs of horror games. So this is kind of more. And
we pass it around, so
yeah.
It reminded me sometimes of it was similar to our experience with Shadows of the Empire, where it was like, okay, you want me to try this or you try this one, and I gotta tell you guys, actually, the levels that are like the big arena like fight a bunch of enemies are the most fun to watch McKenna attempt. That's when you were screaming, you're like, ah!
Yeah, that's the appropriate response. Like that's
and McKenna, you're like this I remember when we were playing The Last of Us. This is just like your strategy. This is your gameplay style, is like there's danger, I gotta back off and like hide and like regroup. But in Doom, it's like they're just gonna keep chasing you, you know, and it's like you really need to just like, I mean, there is parts where you like back off, go around the corner, but a lot of times it's like you just gotta start circle strafing them and mowing them down. So it's just
which is kind of hard to do with an N64 controller. To be fair, like that's not, you know, more easily said than done.
Totally.
Yeah, my controls, the controls on N64 are, it's similar to GoldenEye on the joystick, where you left and right just turns you, but then you go forward and back instead of like you're moving and then you don't have the other stick. But what we did, we kind of Turokified it a little bit and sort of GoldenEye a little bit, where all these extra buttons of hold this button to straight, I'm like, we don't need that. We don't need this. We don't need the map button. And I made the C pad just up goes forward, down goes back, like, so we're strafing with the D pad or the C pad as well. But then also, it's actually kind of like playing Wolfenstein or Doom with a mouse and keyboard, where they almost do the same thing. Like the mouse and the keyboard like are the same controls, but just having that extra ability to like strafe with one hand and turn with the other kind of almost gives it a dual stick feeling. And it honestly felt good. Like it feels better on modern, like on the Switch, it felt better, but we got pretty comfortable with it. And again, not having to look up, you can do that a little bit more compared to Turok, where I think they had to be stricter, because we're like, you need to look, you need to aim up. So like we have to like force that
Right.
as part of the gameplay, you know. But yeah, I think you seem to take to this one a little bit quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Andrew, it sounds like you're a big first person shooter player. You've mentioned a million
I
games
worked on some of them.
Yeah. Did Doom? I guess did Doom like kickstart you at all into like wanting to get into game development, or does it have anything to do with that?
In the earliest, like when I was first playing it, no, because I was, I didn't have like a developed prefrontal cortex yet. But I think later on, it's just it has been so like. Sorry, I've restarted the sentence like 5 times, and I'm gonna do it again.
I believe in you.
That makes one of us. Thank you. Doom has been a game that has given me more and more ideas and sources of creative inspiration over the years. I find different things to pull from it over time, and I start to get way too into my own head about it and start analyzing things too much, and start unpacking like what is the overlap between Doom and like King's Field, and why is there this spot in my brain that wants these things to connect, and how do I make a slow-paced first-person shooter that is primarily about exploration and all that stuff. And that is, there's I have a design document I've been working on for a game that I'll never make, that has been living half in a Google Doc, half in my head for God knows how long. But there's just, it's such a, I mean, Doom is the video game for sure, just in general, but there's still so much from it, I think, that can be pulled from in so many different directions, both creatively and technically. And I think that is a game that is still not done giving.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider all of the new material that is still being made for it to this day. Like, I love me some Doom a great deal. I've probably played more Doom than most people, I guess. But like, there are people on another level exponentially higher than me that have just been playing custom WADs and stuff for 30 years. Like, those communities never died.
Yeah.
They're still around. And I, with the whole like my house.wad stuff that blew up over the a few months ago, I feel like that kind of got a whole new wave of people into the Doom like modding and mapping scenes. There are a ton of different like source ports that like turn Doom into a slightly differently tuned experience on PC for like how you want to play it, I guess. Because if you just run it off of like Steam or whatever, it's like at some super low resolution and stretched out everywhere and blurred to heck, etc.
Not much care given to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they replace those with the Bethesda releases at some point. I don't know. But if you want to play Doom as Doom, I would recommend go finding one of the many free source ports out there, like GZ Doom or Chocolate Doom or whatever, that people have made explicitly so that you can have both a single icon you can click on your desktop that's just going to give you a good modern version of what Doom is.
Give me Doom.
And then also something that you can endlessly tweak into something completely ridiculous, that has all kinds of, you can add reloading if you want. You can make it so that the camera blinks every so at regular intervals or whatever. You can add a stamina system if you hate yourself. You can like make it so you run slower if you're carrying more armor and weapons. Like, you can you can turn Doom halfway into Stalker if you really want to. Like, you can make Doom kind of a mech sim a little bit to an extent. But you can also just do things like replace all of the sprites with voxels, which just means a 3D version of the same thing.
Oh, that's
like, I read that like Doom 64 in particular is like one of the most modded games that there is. Is that true?
Yeah, is that true? Like, because that's one thing I was gonna say that kind of, I think, also sets us apart from like the legacy of Doom, is that like it doesn't have multiplayer, which is a big, like, that's kind of one of the things Doom's known for. And then like I don't know, like, I was wondering, does it have that same type of like modding thing that the original Doom has?
It's weird because for a long time Doom 64 was pretty well trapped, so to speak, on the N64. I mean, people had dumped ROMs of it online and stuff, obviously, but like you couldn't take that data and out of the N64 ROM and just like plug it into treat it like any other custom WAD or whatever, and plug it into your PC copy of Doom and run it. It didn't work that way. It's a different game. It renders everything differently. It is much more quote unquote advanced and complex just because time passed. It came out a few years later. I forget his name now off the top of my head, but the guy that wrote the Kex engine at Night Dive ported Doom 64 to PC in the early 2000s as...
Oh, he's been at it for a while.
Oh, man. Yeah. I forget the name that it was under for a long time. But then replaced that with what he called Doom 64 EX, which was much closer to how it actually looks on the N64, the way that it handles the weirdly specific versions of texture filtering and stuff like that the N64 does that were not being emulated correctly on PC prior to that. And then eventually that got taken back and refined and released through Night Dive as what we now know as the modern version of Doom 64. And in that video that I linked earlier where John was talking to those guys, he was like, can you just plug other WADs into this thing and see if you can make the modern version of Doom 64 run old Doom maps and stuff, like custom ones that people made for Doom and Doom 2 over the years.
Yeah.
I've said Doom so many times that it's just like Doom. A weird meaningless syllable now. I've said Doom more times than a season of Invader Zim in the last 15 minutes. So
did they get it? Did they get it going on
kind of?
Okay.
There was some stuff that was playable, but he was saying that you would have to do quite a bit of work to it if you wanted it to approximate that stuff pretty closely. Otherwise, it's going to be missing walls. You
need that. You need that for sure.
For sure. But yeah, it's
speaking of, you just made me think of the Night Dive remaster again. It's something that I noticed from the Turok.
The unsung heroes of Flashback 64.
I only just recently I'm not really tuned in with current gaming things, which is why I
have a normal healthy brain. Reserve that, please.
But these guys are blowing my mind. So what I with the Turok, I mentioned some things it wasn't just they ported it. It was they went above and beyond, and they did things.
And they do that every time.
And you're like, wait, what? I can't believe they thought to do this. And then Doom 64 had that, and one thing that really blew me away is that they had new levels in the game.
Yeah,
if you beat
the whole, Lost Levels chapter they added there,
which I believe it's supposed to bridge the gap of the story from this game to Doom 2016. I think that's what I had read.
I feel if you ask Doom 2016 anything about story, it will punch you in the face.
Yeah. And, but I think whoever works on the new Doom games is a big fan of Doom 64. I read apparently.
Yeah, I think Patrick Klepek wrote a piece some years back.
Oh, okay.
I think he was still at Kotaku at the time, but he was like, Doom 64 is the linchpin that connects all the other Dooms.
I think that might be true.
I like the Wolfenstein approach where
I like that.
Just everything that says Wolfenstein on it's canon, whatever. All of this happened. Sure,
yeah,
why not?
Yeah, I don't care continuity. You're
especially
talking
for a series like Doom. I mean, you're talking about fighting Martians and demons.
Yeah, Carmack's infamous quote about that was he said in the 90s that story.
I think The Rock and Doom Monkey both exist in this Doom universe somewhere. We just gotta find them.
I need them too. I don't.
Wait,
for my heart.
You got it. You have to say the famous quote, Andy. I think you would appreciate the famous quote about story. How does it go?
Oh, it's I'll paraphrase it, but he said story in games is like porn. You need a premise or whatever, but that's not why you're there. Something like that.
You expect it to be there, but it's not necessary.
I don't care.
Yeah, but I think he's right in some. Maybe that's not the best thing to compare it to.
For arcade stuff like that, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, story adds to both games and.
Yeah. All right, calm down. Calm down.
Yeah. One thing we Andrew, you and I DM'd about for a minute a little while back was we were talking about with this show sort of trying to, not fully, but sort of, one thing I don't like is when people automatically are thinking about an old game and the first thing they talk about, and every the tide has turned a little bit on Doom 64. There's a lot of videos I saw of people who are I love this game, but when they're talking about it and Doom, in the videos, they're like, yeah, like these games like really hold up. And I get that saying, but as you said before, it's like, well, not only does Doom hold up, but it like is video games. You know what I like? You play it and you're like, yeah, this is like all, like not all video games. You know, it's a bit hyperbolic, but you know what I mean. Like almost everything we know comes from this, and like a handful of other games. But it's such a, you know, it's such a foundational thing that it's like it almost annoys me to hear people say like, yeah, Doom holds up. It's like, yeah, no shit, it does. What are you talking about?
I feel like there's like certain games and certain genres.
When breathing is the vibe. That's
like that'd be like saying Tetris holds up. Like, of course it does. Tetris.
yeah, like saying it's so matter of factly. You know, I guess with Doom 64, it's not Doom, but you know, you can be. I'm surprised by it, so you know, I understand, but.
Well, even like not having played, like I've played a little bit of the original Doom, like here and there. Not enough to say that I've like played it all the way through, but like, yeah, it's just like, you know, like you look at like every genre had like the original Final Fantasy, like of course it holds up. It's like that's a role playing game, like that's the blueprint. That's you know
what that game last year for the first time and it ruled. Yeah, exactly. Or like Goo, you and I mean, we were playing like Zelda last year, like Zelda NES. It's just like
that's one of my
this
favorite
just never
games.
Goes out of style. You know, it has no expiry date on it.
Yeah,
you might want to Google a walkthrough, but you'll still have a good time.
yeah.
That's true.
But that's even in this, like N64 is an era, like we're seeing transition into a new era of gaming a little bit. I guess that's always happening, but like we're talking about the password system. Like this game has a password system and a like not figured out save system. But like this is also in that era where we're still seeing like you're getting a magazine, we're getting Nintendo Power, and there's like almost a full we were like looking at walkthroughs for Doom 64 across multiple
they would break it apart from issue to issue.
But you know, so it's like I feel like even like when someone's like, oh, I can't play that game without a walkthrough, it doesn't hold up. And it's like, well, okay, like it's not that bad to have to look at a walkthrough. It happens, you know. I've often found myself, especially when I replayed it, thinking of a lot of puzzles that I like totally missed, and then replaying it, I was like, oh, I should have had this, you know, like I should have. Like this is actually such a good puzzle, and I totally missed it. You know, and it happens. I think it's like
I had to look up a walkthrough once or twice for Doom 64 because I was just like I was lost. Particularly, I messaged Goo this, Andrew, but like I think it's level 7 or something like that. I fell into like the black pit of Doom. You know, you're supposed to jump across those pillars. And I had to walk through because I was like, how do I get out? Like, I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, there's like a weird staircase. You have to go. That one's a little wonky.
Oh, the one up on the side with the... Yeah, that's a weird...
What is that?
Okay. Weird video game. But yeah, that's fine. I had to look up a walkthrough last night playing co-op Perfect Dark Zero with my 8-year-old. And that's a game that has chevrons splashing on the ground telling you where to go at all times. So, you know, it's no shame. It's fine. These things happen.
To just be like, we'll do a little Doom 64 focus, I guess. And we can talk about, Andy, you mentioned one, but maybe McKenna, is there a standout level that stood out to you as like maybe either the best, it could be the most frustrating or anything. Is there any?
So you played the first level.
Yeah.
In Hell.
Even Simpler is the first Hell map, and it's called that because it's just one area. It was like, yeah, that was the perfect one to see you play.
I thought you played that.
Oh, we both did because you ran away and got blown up.
I can think of one later where that happened.
Oh, what one's that?
It was the first one where I fought the spider guy.
The Arachnotrons, yeah.
Where I just immediately got blasted by it.
Those ones you really gotta keep moving.
They're quite rude.
It did feel like a more, like, kind of exploration. Like, there were a lot of demons outside, and then I kind of had to go explore, like, the interior area.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of levels like that where you're kind of like either moving into something or moving up a castle type level, which I think is cool. That gave me kind of Zelda vibes a little bit, like, oh, I'm in the Dark Citadel or whatever, you know. It's like the demonic version of Zelda. One for me, I think it's actually
that's Legacy of Kain.
Legacy of Kain, okay.
That's Goth Zelda. That's
Goth
Soul
Zelda.
Reaver? No, all right, never mind.
Goth Zelda.
It's Vampire Zelda, yeah.
I think actually before the final boss there's a level, and this really was a brain teaser, like Zelda style puzzle, where you have to unlock, or you have to hit these 3 switches to open up the end, and by them they have the color coded, like the 3 different keys, and I didn't realize it at first that it was like they're telling you an order. Like, I didn't realize they're in a different order.
Oh, yeah.
And to unlock each one, you have to go... This was very like Zelda. You have to go to one specific room where they've got the 3 color switches. You have to hit them in the proper order. And if you hit it in a one that's not a combination, you get attacked by an enemy. And then once you hit that, you have to go then backtrack to each switch, and you have to do it for each one. They each have their own, like, combination code you have to put in. And I thought that was... Like, it totally stumped me, but I thought that was so cool once we might even look that one up. I was like, oh, duh. Like, because I have a hard time still, even, like, in Doom, being like, okay, slow down. Like, take it, like, look at what's going on, because I'm either nervous or I'm just running and frantically shooting, you know. But that one, like, I thought that was an awesome puzzle.
Mm-hmm. It's a little hard to fight the urge and like slow yourself down and think in a game where your default move speed could keep pace with a cheetah going flat out. Like,
yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, I turned off run just because I was going too fast.
Yeah.
Was the Dark Pit, is that your most memorable level experience?
I mean, yeah, it probably was. Like, not necessarily for the best reason. Like, I was kind of frustrated because I couldn't figure out where to go, first of all. And then I thought what I needed to do was like on the mid, like before you fall into the pit, but like lower on the other side, there's like a hidden secret or whatever, like the little blue ball that gives you more health.
Oh yeah.
So I thought that's where I needed to go in the level to like progress. So I spent like an hour trying to get over there, and I kept on falling into the pit and falling into the pit. And eventually I got there, and I got the power up, and I was just like, oh shit, like I have to go back now and figure out what to do. So but it was a really cool level. Like, it reminded me a lot of, like, I mean, go figure, but like it reminded me a lot of like Facility from GoldenEye, and just like it was like kind of, you know, it had that kind of vibe to it where it was like kind of like close quarters, enemies around the corner. You never know what you're going to get. So I think that was my standout. But I really liked the level that you showed up, the even simpler level. Like that, like as someone that played Doom 2016 first, I was like, this is what I remember. So I was like,
that'll feel
rip and tear, let's go. Yeah. But and that was a great time. And like I had my chainsaw and my like laser gun. I never got the BFG, which is
oh yeah.
Oh, wild.
I know.
That's a good one.
Oh, you mean the Bioforce gun?
The Bioforce gun.
Oh yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Well,
no, so I still got to finish. I'm gonna go back and get that and really tear it up. But I think that level was pretty cool.
Andrew, favorite level?
I think for me, like when I think Doom 64, the place that my brain goes first is one specific level, which again, I was frantically clicking through a YouTube playlist trying to figure out which one it was here a minute ago. But map 18, Spawned Fear. This is the one that always gives me a hard time in terms of like trying to remember
Spawned Fear,
what I need to do when and where to like actually get to the next chunk of level. And I think this is one of the most like densely packed visions of what Doom 64's like kind of design ethos can be, and warts and all, you know. I think it's a really good representation of what this game is as kind of a vertical slice. It's all the best and most like kind of frustrating aspects of Doom, but also like like I was saying earlier, like the feeling of being lost and not knowing where to go in these games is something that I like cherish for whatever reason. Something that I really enjoy. And this level always does that to me, no matter how many times I play through it, because it's just a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I always end up spending like an hour running around this place trying to figure out what I need to be doing when and where, which is probably not good, but for whatever reason, it just sticks with me, and I have a weird admiration for it.
That scratches an itch that I have too, like the getting lost thing. There's a couple, most of the puzzles of like, or like you hit the switch and it does something, are usually pretty intuitive, and they have a good like hint towards it, and like a lot of times it blows me away. I'm like, oh, that's cool, like of course this controls this. But sometimes it is like you hit a switch and it does something somewhere completely different, you have no idea. And you
might hear it, you might not.
You have to like re-explore the whole level.
Yeah.
Did you figure out what level you're talking about?
The bleeding.
The
one after even simpler.
The bleeding.
Oh, the one after. Okay. What was up? That's the one where it had the okay. The names of these levels, even just they're all like
very good.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember the bleeding. Yeah, it's that one looks like a map, like a multiplayer map a little bit. It's kind of a shame that this game didn't have that, but and Andy, you mentioned weapons. What did you have a favorite weapon to shoot?
I don't know,
You were always on the chain gun, I feel like.
Yeah, I did like being able to shoot a lot. Although
Me too,
I
yeah.
did when I had it, the chainsaw.
The chainsaw. I'm always too afraid to use the chainsaw.
It's just fun to
I love the
just
chainsaw.
tear a demon in half.
So good.
I was embracing the chainsaw last night. I was playing some original Doom, and I was like, okay, I got the chainsaw, like I gotta use it, you know. So I like once I force myself to use it, but I'm usually like, I gotta stay back.
I did like the Unmaker design wise.
The Unmaker, you pick it up and it goes, what the fuck is this? Or
The gun from Existenz, but it's got like a pentagram card into it. Instead of teeth, it shoots hell lasers. And who doesn't love hell lasers?
Hell lasers, yeah. Was that your favorite gun, or Andrew, or what's your main gun?
Doom 2 onwards, I tend to just default to the super shotgun.
Hell yeah.
It's a very good answer to most problems. It's like that or the chain gun are my fallbacks, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not like switching around constantly, but I am a little bit. It's not like Eternal, where that game needs you to be constantly juggling 1,000 different proverbial chainsaws, whereas Doom 64 is like, what if we give you one chainsaw that has two chainsaws on it?
Hell yeah.
In a very literal sense, which I'm always down for.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Doom Eternal, I didn't finish, and I didn't like that it was like you had to swap around, whereas in this I like that it's like there's certain weapons that if I see this type of enemy, I pull out that weapon because of not just of like the damage it does to them, even though there is that like certain enemies are certain weapons are more effective, but also just how I use them, you know. So like if I see an arachnotron, I'm getting out the rocket launcher and I'm like standing way back and like trying to strafe around them and blow them up, you know, like it's like 3 and it kills them or something, you know.
Yeah, and they give you a ton of ammo for that rocket launcher. Like they are,
you do, yeah.
Really asking.
I had like 100 missiles. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, man. They want you to blow things up.
But I'm like, you're often in a corridor, and I'm like, I don't want to have this rocket launcher out in the corridor.
Yeah.
It's like this is gonna do more harm than good, maybe.
You gotta risk it for the biscuit, buddy.
But yeah, I mean, you start like I think that Doom is a game that like I think Doom 64 is not necessarily very good at teaching you how to play Doom.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of just like the way that it starts off pretty in terms of like complexity and difficulty, it's like it starts off around the like halfway point of Doom 1-ish, I think. That's a very rough very scientific estimate.
Yeah.
Based off of, you know, evidence and numbers and
vibes, things. I think.
Yeah, mostly just vibes. but Doom in general is pretty good at, I think, without words, teaching you to understand switching guns based on your surroundings and like encounter distances and like what kind of demon you're fighting. Like if there is a pinky demon at the end of the hallway, you're going to pull a chain gun out because that will stun lock it. You might not, like, even for someone that doesn't know what stun locking is or means or whatever, it's just like, I know I hold this button down and that thing can't move enough to get to me.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. Or if something is very close to me and I have the super shotgun out, that problem kind of solves itself.
And it might take someone else with them too.
Yeah, exactly. It might take. Sometimes it takes out someone above and behind them. A good 20 meters away. It's fine. Yeah, and especially like the normal shotgun in Doom 1 has a pretty realistic effective distance, which is to say, compared to other video games, it feels like a sniper rifle.
Yep. I liked you could see someone from like well across the map with the shotgun. From a window. And
yep.
That was my go-to. I didn't even use the super shotgun. Like I found the regular shotgun was like completely effective enough. Like that I didn't want to.
Got a really good rhythm to it too. Yeah, like once you get a feel for like exactly how much space there can be between shots fired, like you get in a good groove with the Doom shotgun.
Oh, it's very satisfying feeling. Yeah. And
then in Doom 3, the shotgun is explicitly a melee weapon in a weird way, but that's for another day.
We'll get there someday. In a different podcast.
Yeah, Xbox. Flashback Xbox.
Flashback Xbox.
I almost said Xbox 64. That's where I'm at these days. I'm doing great, guys.
That would be the sickest console ever made. Also in terms of just a minor thing, but the like sprites and like the sounds of the weapons themselves like looked really cool. Like it's a little obnoxious, but you bust out the plasma rifle and it's humming, and like the BFG,
crackling,
like
and
the whole wind up to shooting it.
Yeah.
So satisfying.
I'm trying to remember. There was an anecdote about sound design in the original Doom where they're like for the pistol, we used the sound of a shotgun. For the shotgun, we use the sound of a cannon, and like it's always got to be at least one step higher than it needs to be. But like I think one of the crucial things about Doom in general is none of these games really by default until 3 have like an assault rifle or an SMG kind of equivalent. Like your only automatic weapon really is the chain gun.
The
plasma rifle.
That's Wolfenstein holdover.
Oh yeah, totally.
But it's way
it was
sicker.
good enough to take down Mecha Hitler. It's good enough to take down a cyber demon. Damn it.
Couldn't take down the Predator, though.
No, that's...
No, dude.
In that case, the jungle comes alive and takes you, and it's a whole other problem. But yeah, it's weird because I think for that reason, and because of the effective distance, like the shotgun kind of ends up being the skeleton key for most of Doom situations, I guess.
Oh, big time. Not only the sprites on the weapons look cool, but the enemy like designs and sprites were very cool. Like how I believe they made real
we should
models.
mention that's all new.
Yeah, that's all new. Yeah, which it's cool. I find myself comparing and contrasting to the original and being like, oh, I like all of them. I really appreciate what they did. There's some where it's like, oh, I like the old design better. Some I like the N64 better, but just the work they put into those, like it has it's like they remind me of like Goro Mortal Kombat, where
so like digitized claymation kind
Dude,
of thing.
that is spot on. Wow,
digitized claymation. Yeah,
fighting millions of misshapen Goros.
What's your favorite enemy, McKenna? Or least favorite? I guess the Arachnotron. That was our biggest fear. We were the most scared of the Arachnotron.
Whenever those guys were on screen, I was like, oh, I gotta get that guy. I gotta kill him.
Don't play the last level of Doom 1 anytime soon. Then I'll just leave it at that.
Oh no, yeah.
Go hang out with the Spider Mastermind.
Spider. That's such a sick name.
That's a name. Yeah.
But yeah, is there one? I don't know. Who do you like the most? If you had to pick, who's the most charismatic? I think the Pinky Demon might be. They're cute.
Definitely in the movie.
Any of the really big guys, I'd just be like, oh, look how big he is.
Yeah, when like
I'm gonna mess that dude up and he's gonna fall down real good.
Yeah, it's gonna be really gory when I kill him.
Oh yeah, the death animations are so sick. Doom has that thing when like the bosses start being used as like just regular enemies, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
god, like you fight one of those mancubuses or whatever, and then now you're fighting 4 of them, and that always. How about you guys, Andy, Andrew? Do you have a favorite enemy? who had the most riz?
So it was like a super simple enemy, but like particularly like every time you killed one of these, I don't know what they're actually called, but like those like little skulls that have like the flames around them.
Oh, those are the worst.
And they would like rush you, but then you shoot them, and they were just like, and they just looked so like they looked so radical when they were like exploding that it
So
was
metal.
just like, sweet, this is cool. Like it literally looks like an old B movie, like when, I don't know, Skull Rider or Ghost Rider, someone would throw like in Sleepy Hollow when he throws the flaming skull, and I was just like, yeah, this is sweet. I thought that like most of the enemy designs looked pretty cool though, to be honest. Like they all looked like, for the era, like pretty slick. I think Goro, that comparison is like spot on. Like that, these guys look like they could be in Mortal Kombat, like bashing people, fatality people.
Yeah, like the 64 versions of the enemies are very like they're a lot more grotesque, I think, and a little bit more like kind of cartoonishly exaggerated. There's like 15% Todd McFarlaneization happening there.
Yeah,
and maybe like a 5% Tim Burtonization happening there.
They're edgy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're edgier, but they're also a little bit goofier in some ways. Like they're a little chunky. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like they're like bulbous in a weird way.
The bulbous.
I don't know. Like
bulbous does describe a lot of them. Yeah, where like even the ones where that didn't exist, like as a defining feature of them. Like some of them, it's like they exaggerate. Like the Cacodemon, they made him more bulbous, but then other ones, I'm like, why this one's like even more disgusting than the last one.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite? If you had to pick a number one.
Oh geez, I don't know, man. I've been hanging out with these guys for 30 years now.
It's like they're all my children,
They took away the imp's butthole, which is probably for the best. That's the big change there. Someone who's played a lot of Doom 1 will know what I'm talking about.
Didn't like a handful of the enemies have like more buttholes, or is it just?
Dude, I don't know.
I think the Cacodemons.
That was supposed to be a toss-off joke that no one noticed while I came up with a better answer.
I think the Cacodemon has 2 buttholes.
Great. Goals. Shout out to the Cacodemon. I don't know, man. I love me a Hell Knight. I love me a Baron of Hell. Just a big, mean cartoon like Tim Curry and Legend kind of thing.
Yes. Oh, fantastic movie drop. I gotta say, gotta give it to you.
This seemed like the right crowd for a Legend poll. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
We love that one here. Yeah. Well, Doom 64. Is there any? Do you have any other standout? Any final thoughts on the game?
I feel like we should mention the end credits.
The end credits.
You get to shoot all the demons.
Oh yeah, on repeat after you beat it.
Yeah.
It's like in Smash when you beat like the
you shoot the credits.
You shoot the credits.
You shoot the
This is that, but it's like they line up all the enemies and then yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you shoot them all. And then it just keeps looping and it never ends.
I love that.
It has like their names under them, like they were playing a part there or whatever, kind of like the end of Castlevania.
Yeah, I like that. It was like, and the Cacodemon. Hey.
Yeah, starring.
Take a bow.
I always used to love when like you'd beat Donkey Kong Country and it like had the credits, but it was like all the enemies in the game and stuff like that. I love that.
Yeah, it's just cute.
It's like the opposite of didn't Miyamoto want it in GoldenEye? Like they wanted you'd have to like shake the hands or something.
Go to the hospital and shake everyone's hand. Like, sorry for filling you with lead. Oh well,
dang.
I
did what I had to do.
They didn't let Miyamoto near this game, I guess.
Probably not. Like he might have had a few notes. Midway is not necessarily as close to Nintendo as Rare was at the time, I guess.
Yeah, true. So this is a lot of Midway. We've had a lot of Midway already. Like that's been like kind of the primary producer of games because they've done a lot of
This is primetime Midway, man.
And I like
this into the Dreamcast era. It's they were doing a lot of stuff.
And it's just that it makes me think of it makes me think of like Mortal Kombat and stuff. Like this is an interesting era where it's like it's just past like that initial burst of like outrage over fatalities, and I think isn't Doom 2 is the first game with a ESRB rating on it. Is that true? That might not be true. I don't know.
I feel like I should know that, but
let's say it's true.
Drawing a blank here. I'm sorry.
Let's just say it's true. But
sure.
this is like a couple years after that, but it's still it's before like the backlash to Doom or whatever because of Columbine. So it's like kind of an interesting time where like some people are getting away with stuff on N64. Like you had Mortal Kombat and you had Turok. We talked a little bit about how some of it could have had more of that type of violence that this game really provides. It had a little bit of violence and stuff, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting era of gaming. Like we just actually did the 1996 Nintendo Power Awards, and we were talking about how like certain games don't even get mentioned, it seems like, and it's like the more mature ones. So it seems like Nintendo is like they're okay with having them, but it's not like this is not our bread and butter. Though they did give a lot of spreads to Doom 64, so I don't know. Maybe it's just a conspiracy theory.
I feel like first two generations of hardware for Nintendo Power is very much the like state-run media kind of like propaganda arm kind of thing. And then I feel like once you get into the N64 era where like nothing is selling, they're like, oh, no one's watching anymore. We can rate our own first-party titles like kind of low, and that's okay. And that kind of continued into the GameCube and Wii eras where they were just like, whatever, we're just another magazine. It's fine.
They do dunk on people writing into them, though, which is fun. So there's a little bit still of that.
You gotta maintain your sanity somehow, I imagine.
I guess that reminds me of now, like, reading comments on a YouTube video I published, and every once in a while I'm like, you know what? I'm going to comment on this one and say something snarky. I can't imagine getting like physical comments sent to you.
That's terrifying.
Andy, any final feelings, anything else you wanted to get off your chest about Doom 64?
Just that once again, I feel like it surpassed my expectations, and I don't know, I guess kind of made me like rethink the Doom series. You know, like I said, I think at this point it's quite clear, like rather unfairly, I always thought that it was kind of like a, kind of series. So I felt like very, very like I had some resolve to finally play Doom Eternal, which I've had for like 3 years now. Right. So I might even do that, but like
you're good.
I was like, like all these other games, they're so cheap. Like, I don't know, maybe I should just like pick them up.
Yeah. I would pick them up.
Go play Doom, man. You can play it in your browser right now somewhere.
Yeah, play it on your toaster.
Places.
Yeah,
play it on a pregnancy test.
Like I think that it was a good experience. Like I would have never played it if not for this. I'm glad that I did, because I feel like it just kind of I think I underestimated Doom a little bit. And particularly Doom 64, so it was it was a good chance to make things right.
I think I
underestimated. Never mind.
I kind of like. I wanted to have you on because I recommended Turok to you because I felt like there was some DNA with like Metroid Prime, with the iguana retro connection was there. That I was like, you might appreciate this, and I was playing this, and I was like, I think Andy might like this. Oh, and also I didn't really mention, but I believe I was also reading Masters of Doom and Doom Guy, like all the books about the development of the original, and they mentioned like that they at first had conceptualized Doom as maybe doing a video game based on aliens, and which they didn't really move forward with at all, I guess. But I just thought there's some you can feel some of the inspiration there, and I thought Andy, as we've covered so many of the alien movies on the Omega Metroid podcast because there's some influence there. So I thought you might kind of just the vibe might work with you. So
I mean, I think you were right. Like I said, like I was very, very pleasantly like surprised. So I was like, there's not really even that many Doom games. So like, why not?
It's
like,
not, it's not hard, and they're all quick to get through. I feel like,
Yeah, totally.
But Doom is a lifetime game. You can kind of just keep playing it, I think, forever.
Yeah.
There is always infinite Doom. If you have an internet connection, there is infinite Doom.
What's infinite Doom?
Oh, I just mean
I thought
not capital I infinite. It's
I thought you were conceptualizing like a Doom that just never ends. Like someone made like a rogue or like a, you know what I mean, a procedurally generated Doom. I was like, that's a good idea.
Well, I mean, probably.
Let's do it.
Sure, people are doing wild stuff with Doom for the last 30 years. Like, imagine if Nintendo put out Super Mario Maker and it was like open sourced for 3 decades and people just kept getting weird with it.
Oh yeah.
That's what the Doom scene is. If you want some weird stuff, there's some weird. I keep saying weird stuff. I just mean like people doing things with the engine that it shouldn't be able to do, or just like having really cool creative ideas and stuff. And there's a lot of Croft and filler, but like at the end of the day, man, it's still Doom. How bad can it get?
Doom is Doom. Andrew, anything else you wanted to get off your chest about Doom before we go?
I mean,
Final
I
thoughts.
can try to wrap that up a little bit. I love Doom 64 a lot, and I wish that I had played it sooner because it doubles down on a lot of the aspects of Doom that I personally tend to enjoy most. But just generally speaking, I don't know, man. If you have not played a Doom of some kind, they are everywhere and on everything now. I'd probably recommend starting with the first one just because it's there. But yeah, I was kind of vamping, waiting for Andy to put his headphones back on. Just go play Doom. Just go play Doom-ass Doom. 1993 Doom.
That was
I'm
excellent.
sorry. I was hoping you were gonna keep going. My cat's she's like a demon from hell causing destruction.
How thematically appropriate.
Yeah, I want to thank both you guys for coming on. It was great to have you. You're expert level guests for this show.
Well, yeah, I was a guest anyways, but yeah, of course, I had a
Higher level
blast.
guest.
I'm not referring to your familiarity with the game, Andy. You bring a certain X factor.
Oh, a Riz,
A Riz, yeah.
a Riz. Yeah, no, thanks guys. It was a blast, Andrew. It was cool getting to hear you talk about Doom, a game you're very knowledgeable and passionate about. This was a great time. Thank you.
Honored to have been here. Thanks all.
Well, Andrew, you can go first. Why don't you plug what do you got going on?
Sure. So I was part of that recent round of Bungie layoffs that were quickly pushed out of the news feed by several more rounds of gigantic layoffs because this industry is committed to eating people this year. But I guess for now, I've got a couple kind of video essays of similar deep diving into weird stuff on YouTube under the name Mythic Resonance. I just did a big old like half-hour video about the most forgotten Resident Evil game that is also my favorite for very similar vibe reasons as Doom 64.
That was a fantastic video, by the way, and like I consider myself a lover of Resident Evil, but then I'm like looking at this, I'm like, I've never even heard of these games. I haven't played all the games, but
Which game were you talking about, if I may? I feel like I'm a Resident Evil fan, but maybe slightly more casual. But like I played them all.
Dead Aim on the PS2 is my favorite Resident Evil game.
So
I've heard of it. I'll give
weird
myself
thing.
that at least. I've heard of it.
Like you explaining how it works and everything, it's like, wow, they really combine like a light gun game into Resident Evil, and it doesn't, I don't know, it looks very interesting. Like I want to check it out at some point.
Yeah, it's a fascinating experiment. And I think it's one of those weird things where just if it works for you, it's going to work really well. And if it doesn't, you'll know very quickly. But yeah, doing that. Otherwise, hire me. I've shipped a bunch of video games. I'd love to ship some more. I actually, during this call, my portfolio site finally went live up at elmore.design, I guess, is where that is for
nice.
now. It should link out to most of my other stuff from there. I don't know, elmore.zone on Blue Sky. That's Twitter's dead. What else do we have? Co-host, I don't know.
We're hanging out in Blue Sky. That's how we met.
Yeah, totally. I think it was Ryan posted something about guesting with you guys, and I was like, oh yeah, sure. That sounds rad. I'll follow that. And now here we are.
Now it's history, yeah. Andy, you're a plug machine. What do you want to plug?
I don't need to spend too much time plugging. You can find me on the ZeldaCast, Omega Metroid Virtual Theater. Yeah.
Can we
go to my Twitter.
We can announce on Virtual Theater. We're not doing it for December because we have a flashback tie-in episode plan, but for all you Doom heads there, maybe we can say in January.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and reveal?
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
We've covered Doom, the original Doom movie. We're gonna watch Doom Annihilation, which we have never seen, and it reviewed poorly. I don't know. Andrew, have you seen that movie?
No, I forgot that existed until right this second.
It came out actually right when Andy and I started doing the show, and we're like, yeah, let's cover it. And then we just
5 years later.
Yeah. So we're getting to it. We're going to do it. McKenna will be there. We're going to Doom it up.
It's going to be a good time. I can tell already just by looking at the movie, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
I definitely thought you were building up to Color of Money.
Where
the Doom name came from.
Yes. Hey, that's not a bad idea. I think
pulling Tom Cruise to legend. There we go. That's.
I've got a plug. So Andrew, I work with this guy, and he's into movies with the same kind of taste that Goo and I are. And this dude dropped a Jim Carrey Riddler gif in our chat today. So I immediately linked our virtual theater episode with the Batman smile going on.
Yes.
And I was like, we're not just video game movies, baby. We got other gems in here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Star Wars prequels.
So that's the only thing I'll plug.
McKenna, do you want to personally plug anything? McKenna's got a YouTube.
Yeah, I'm working on some stuff.
Yes. Some stuff is coming.
I'm cooking.
For you Zelda fans, if you like the new Zelda games that have come, have you heard about these new Zelda games? McKenna's got some fun stuff.
Yeah, doing a Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom thing.
It'll be cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our next games we're going to be covering are War Gods and Hexen, which ties into this. I thought about actually connecting Hexen and Doom, but we're gonna give it some space to breathe. But I think Andrew will be returning.
Finally bought a copy of Hexen 64 for this podcast.
I'm excited. I played a little bit of Heretic on my PC recently, just to get in the mind space of, okay, this is a sequel. So excited to talk about both of those games. Yeah. Also, War Gods Midway again.
I look forward to having nothing to say about that.
That's quite all right. We got to fight. We got our fighting game, one of our fighting game experts coming on. So we got to thank Corey and Nico for, again, crafting the vibe of the show with their excellent theme and logo.
Go to hell, Corey.
Go to hell, Corey, though. Corey sucks. We hate him.
Yeah.
It's a Primus sucks situation. But...
Andy, it's too much to get into, but Andy and Corey,
there's too much lore there.
I'm gonna leave the lore on the table.
Everything Andy, I'll just say everything Andy says on a podcast pisses Corey off. So, and Corey can't get enough of hating Andy. So
this is a Morrowind book on the table. I'm going to leave unread. Is what I have here.
And yeah, you can find us on like and subscribe, comment on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I try to make it be everywhere. I guess we're on Twitter or X or whatever, but we're I don't even post on there except to post the new episodes. We got it. But, Blue Sky is the place to find us, and where we generally like to hang out. We're posting on there. So come join there. We got merch on Etsy. We got a Patreon if you want to kick us a buck. If you Google Flashback 64, Patreon, Etsy. You'll find all the places to find and support us.
Just use AOL keyword FB64.
You can email us. I've mentioned that before. Wow. We've gotten one email, and maybe someday we'll have a PO box, but we're flashback64pod@gmail.com. And come join in the link. We got our Discord. The Discord is fun. We do game nights, and we've been branching out. We've kind of, with the NSO feature, we've started like messing around with games that aren't multiplayer and just everyone takes a turn, and we experienced a little bit of wave race. We had our friends racing each other.
Oh, nice.
By the time this one comes out, we will have played some Pilot Wings together. And so we're going to have some more diverse game selections, but we're typically also playing Mario Kart 64, so if you want to come in, get nostalgic, play some games, talk about food. Food is a big topic of conversation in there.
Our active channels.
Our active channels, the food channel. Yeah, come join us there. But otherwise, again, thanks to both of you for coming on. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll see you next month when we talk about War Gods and Hexen.
What you got in there? In here? Doom.